Where am I? Here I am. Hey there, Grateful Gang. It is Lauren here, the Gratitude Addict. Welcome to Gratefully Living the Chronic Life, where I come to you each Thursday and I have an expert guest on every week who has something of value to offer us and helping us to live this grateful life with joy and intention. I have a return guest tonight. It seems like she was just on. I was just talking to her, prior to the broadcast. Andrea Hanson is here with us. She was actually on 2 months ago, but it seems like she was just on. And like the first time, I have a whole list of things I want to talk to her about tonight. And I got to like maybe two of them last time. I know you guys really enjoyed her appearance, so I've asked her to come back tonight. So we will bring her on in a couple of minutes. I'm excited to have her back. She's got a couple good books, um, including this one, Live Your Life, Not Your Diagnosis. And that is also the name of her amazing podcast, which I was fortunate enough to be a guest on. It was the best interview I've ever done. Honestly, she's so fantastic, and her podcast has been taking off. So I encourage you to check it out. But before I bring her on, I have taken a few weeks off. Thank you to everybody who came to World Gratitude Day. The Women of Gratitude live virtual roundtable was World Gratitude Day, September 21st. And I took a few weeks off because I was tired. I was tired. It took a lot of planning. It was months of planning, but I couldn't be happier with how it went. The women were phenomenal, so respectful. I was just telling Andrea about, not backstage, but prior to going live, that they were all so lovely and sharing their expertise so willingly and openly with everybody, but also bringing each other into the conversation. And, it was really a collaborative effort. So for all the women of gratitude, thank you from the bottom of my heart for being on the show. For those of you who tuned in, registered and tuned in, thank you very, very much. If you are wondering where your gratitude toolkit is, it's coming. Again, I was just telling Andrew, there was a big letdown after the show. I mean, not in a bad way, just there was an adrenal dump, like kind of like I felt the same way when I finished both of my books, the book deadlines. Actually 3 books, but only 2 published, but that's a story for another day. Yeah, just kind of a letdown. So I just needed to regroup and all that. And then my husband and I went away on a camping trip, which was glorious and much, much needed. So I will be sending out the gratitude toolkit to all who registered, and there's going to be some great things in there provided by the guests. There's also, this is actually a good segue, which I hadn't intended, but I will do it. In 3 weeks, I won't be back next week or the following week, but in 3 weeks, I am having on Goranka from a company called Let's Soul. And she makes gratitude apparel, wonderful gratitude apparel, including this. This shirt says, "Messy hair, don't care, still grateful." She sent me this and another shirt. She's going to be on, besides doing apparel, she's got an incredibly powerful story. So she's going to be my guest on the broadcast. The reason why that was a segue is she's got a coupon code for her apparel that is going to be involved or as part of the gratitude toolkit. So there's that shirt. She's got a couple others. She sent me this one in white, hashtag gratitude 365. Grateful for my family. She's got wonderful things. So you can check her out at letssoul.com and make sure you tune in. I think it's October, what's the date? 27th, October 27th, she will be on. This shirt, I speak fluent gratitude. I know you can't see the back, but it's got the attitude of gratitude with chronic pain logo on. Recently started a store on a company called Bonfire. So you can get your I Speak Fluent Gratitude t-shirts and sweatshirts. I put the link in the show notes, but let me just put it in the comments here. So you can go on there. There's shirts, t-shirts, sweatshirts, also a mug, which I'll show you in a minute. Okay, that should be in the comments now. This mug says, "Today is a reboot day," which is something we say in my community. If you're not a member of my community on Facebook, it's called Attitude of Gratitude with Chronic Pain. And reboot day is what we call when we just need to reboot. And so when I started the group many years ago, I found that people were embarrassed when they were setting their daily intentions. They were embarrassed to say they were taking a rest day. So we had a contest to rename rest day. And the winner was reboot day. So that is what this is all about. So you can go onto the Bonfire store and get your shirts and your mug if you'd like. Also, speaking of store, I have recently been approved to be an Amazon affiliate, and what that means is that I have a store that I can put things. I shouldn't say I put things in. I am not making these things, but I can link to like Andrea's book is in my store. I have a category called my favorite books about chronic illness, and this is in the store. Let me show you what it looks like. So here it is. My fave books on living and thriving with chronic pain and illness. That's the key, living and thriving, not healing yourself and all that. That's kind of a pet peeve of mine. So there's Andrea's book right there at the top. You can go into the store and I get a little bit of credit to help me offset the cost of running the group if you link to get books through there. I've also got like some gratitude stuff on there. So if you go, let me put the link to, kind of a hot mess tonight. Here we go. Comments. Yeah. So check out my store. According to Amazon, I'm an influencer. Who knew? But yeah, you can go on there and check out some stuff and you'll see some books from past guests and all sorts of stuff on there. So check that out. What else? What else? I think that's it. World Gratitude Day, my shirt, Let's Soul. Oh, for those of you that are new, first of all, welcome. We are an interactive broadcast, so I wholeheartedly welcome all comments from all of you out there. I had put a pinned post, and if you're watching on YouTube, I put a pinned post, which I just figured out how to do earlier for those of you that logged in early. And what's the question I asked? It was, what are your struggles living with chronic pain and illness? Andrea is a mindset coach, and she is going to be on hand to talk to you about all of this stuff. Oh, here it is. What challenges do you face in living your best life with your chronic condition? So feel free to put in the comments, and I can put them on the screen. My Aunt Betty's here. Hi, Aunt Betty from Rhode Island. Thank you. So yeah, please feel free to put in your comments. Thank you everybody for watching. It's been a nice break, but I am very happy to be back and nobody else I'd rather be on than with this one. Hey Andrea. Thanks for being
Hey,
here.
how are ya?
Doesn't it seem like you were just on?
It does. Well, I was saying earlier, it's like we talk all the time. So yeah,
We
it
do.
feels like I was just talking to you because
Yeah,
I kind of was.
we do. Yeah, so I was a guest on her podcast for those of
Mhm.
you that weren't able to watch the first
One
one.
of the most popular podcasts to date, actually.
Really?
Mhm.
Wow, you're not just saying that?
I'm not. Oh, no, I'm totally not just saying that.
Wow, who knew? Well, thank
I was
you.
just looking it up as you were talking. I was like, "Ooh, let's
Really?
see where they are."
Oh,
Mhm.
it was a great you were a great interview for sure.
Ah,
I mean what I said. It was the best interview I've done.
you make it easy.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a lot of the same theories isn't the right word, but outlooks on how to live with chronic
Mhm.
pain and illness. So I think the list
Yeah.
that I never got to last time may not be touched tonight either, but that's okay. I'd rather, the audience get in what they would like to get. So
Mm.
welcome back to the broadcast.
Thank
This
you.
is one of your books. She has another book as well, which
Mhm.
I've got. Here it is. Live Your Life, Not Your Diagnosis is this one. And then also Stop Carrying the Weight of Your MS.
Mhm.
And I added this quote from your website to the bottom about the book. One size fits all doesn't exist when you're living with a diagnosis.
Mhm.
So, for those of people that weren't watching last time, can you just tell us a little bit about you, how you got here? You've got an incredible story.
Gosh, where to start? So I was diagnosed, I mean, 22 to almost 23 years ago with multiple sclerosis. So I was just a baby, and I was in the middle of graduate school, and I was kind of going, like going to move your hair out of your eye, how one does. And I poked my eye, like I just nailed my eye. And later on that day, it's like the vision in that eye just started shutting down. And I thought I had like a detached retina or something. I had no idea. Like I was just kind of thinking of stuff. And it turns out I had optic neuritis. And I didn't really, I mean, in a roundabout way, it had something to do with poking it, but not really, not ultimately. It just kind of exaggerated it. And from that optic neuritis, I was diagnosed. And not just diagnosed, but my neurologist said that I was on fire. That's the term he used. Um,
Because of the MRI of your brain?
the MRI of my brain, it was like Christmas lights. It was
Mhm.
like it was all these little stars. I mean, it was crazy.
And, am
So
I remembering right that the eye doctor said you need to go to the ER, like, immediately? Am I remembering that right?
well, I didn't go to the ER, but he like looked at my eye and then like made a phone call, basically. And I was lucky because I was at like a hospital system. And so I went to an ophthalmologist, and then I literally walked down the hallway to a neuro ophthalmologist. And then I literally went upstairs and was admitted to the hospital. And that's where I met my MS specialist. So it was all kind of right in there in
Okay.
one day. It was kind of scary.
And you were
Um,
young. I mean,
I
you're thinking
was.
about being a baby. You were, like, your 20s, right? Or early
I
20s,
was
yeah.
about 22.
Mm,
I was about 22, and so yeah, so I was definitely admitted to the hospital, but, I didn't have to go to the ER. I was just admitted and just, like, started therapy right away. Um, and, it was through that I kind of realized things like how important it was that I guarded my own mindset when it came to MS, because when I'm sure a lot of people know, when you're especially when you're diagnosed or when you have something and you're going to a lot of doctors, people tend to like hand you these stories, like not very empowering stories about
yeah,
what your life is going to look like now and what your future is going to look like and how you're going to have all these crazy things happen. And it's like, and I kind of was watching all these people try to tell me what my life now meant, like
right.
people who had never met, but like they didn't know me, they didn't even really ask me a lot of questions. And that's when I realized, like, oh, I've gotta be very, very careful with what I believe and how I take what they're saying. And it really, I didn't even know what it was really that I was doing, but what I was doing was I was guarding my mindset. I was
Mm,
building up my mindset and really taking ownership of my story and being very careful of not letting other people give me those, you know, just really bad stories
that's
about
very
what's
badass of
gonna
you at such a young age, because I'm just figuring that out now, and I'm
happen.
53.
You
Seriously, though,
know
like, when I was first diagnosed,
Yeah.
I was willing to be like, "Oh, okay," take all the just listening to every doctor as gospel
Mhm.
and just,
Yeah.
that's really badass of you at a young age.
You're so sweet. No, and it's not to say that, like, I never faltered. It's just that I started seeing, like, "Oh, I can't do that." Like, I tried it for a little bit, and then I was like, "Oh, no, clearly I can't just listen to these people because they don't know
Right.
what's going on with me." And like I said, I didn't know what I was doing. I think part of it, I was lucky that I was so young, and I've always kind of just had a problem with authority figures. That's just kind
Well,
of
that helps.
it helps, honestly. I mean, I'm kinda glad that
And see,
I
and I'm just like, "Okay."
No, I mean, I was still kind of full of fire at that age. I mean, I was still in school, I was still kinda indestructible, and so to push back came very naturally to me, but I'm really glad it did,
Yeah,
because you're right. I mean, and I still would fall into moments where I was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna listen to them," because yeah, I mean, especially when you're dealing with doctors and specialists and people who know more than you, they're authority figures, and you're like, you don't know anything,
right.
especially if it's something like a new diagnosis. Like, I didn't know what the heck an MS was. And
Do you think part of
so
you is in denial at all? Like, did you
probably, I mean,
think like, "Well, this isn't gonna happen to me," 'cause
I
you were
never, I
feeling
mean,
fine, right, at the time?
I was what?
You were feeling fine other
Mm-mm,
oh,
I
you
was like
were
halfway
feeling
blind.
well, of the blind, yeah. But I mean, as far as pain goes, yeah, blind is no big deal. I'm kidding. Of course, it's a big
No big
deal.
deal. No big
Um,
deal. I had had some one kind of common thing that can happen with MS is like numbness and like a pins and
Oh, okay.
needles, but
Yeah,
like always, like constant pins and
yeah,
needles and not like a little tickle pins and needles, but
yeah.
like a serious. And I had had a couple of bouts of that within the last year, but it
Oh,
was never
okay.
caught. It was never diagnosed. And the whole thing with MS, or at least with my type of MS, there's different types. With my type, it's called relapsing remitting. So you'll have a symptom and then it kind of goes away after a month or so. So if within that month you don't catch it, it can, unless it's something huge, you can kind of say like, well, it's gone now. It
Right,
was probably something else. And if your doctors are like, oh, it's probably in your head, then you don't really catch it. So I
right.
had that a couple of times, but this time it's like I probably had maybe 30% vision out of one eye. I mean, it was yeah,
Oh, that's really bad.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So you've been given this diagnosis,
Mm.
not, listening to authority and all that. Where did you go from there? You I'm kidding. Were you made a pivot in college, right?
I did. Well, I was in the middle of my master's program when I was diagnosed. And so I finished up that semester, but then I left. I came back ultimately and finished my program and got my master's, but for a while I left because I needed money. I needed insurance. Um And so I went and started I was in my master's was in human development and early childhood disorders. So I was working with like little kids, like ages 0 to 3 that had things like sensory processing disorders and Down syndrome and autism and things like that. And then I pivoted out of that. I needed money. I needed insurance. So I went and I worked in finance, as one does.
Because it's not stressful at all.
I was good with numbers. So, but yeah, I did that because I was like, I need money. Like I saw very clearly, like I was going to have to, like, I was always from the jump. I was very close with my neurologist. I'm very lucky. I was diagnosed by one of the best honestly, best in the world. I was at a really, really good hospital and, I got one of the best doctors there. So I was always very much, in connection with him and in lockstep with him, but I knew that I needed other stuff. I knew this was going to be a holistic situation. And so I was like, I need personal trainers. I need acupuncturists. I need nutrition. I was like, I need all of these things. So I need money. I can't do that when I'm going through
Right.
school. So I did. I did a pretty massive pivot and worked in finance for a while. And to your question earlier, I that's kind of the first place I went. I didn't really know. Like I kind of just bumbled my way through it. Um, I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew that I wanted to learn how to heal. I knew that there were basic things that I could do for my health. And I took a lot of missteps. I trusted a lot of the wrong people, but I also trusted a lot
I
of the right people.
I think many of us can relate
Yeah.
to all of that, right? It's so much trial
Mhm.
and error, isn't
Oh my
it?
gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I learned, I think naturally I'm a very introspective person and I was raised in a very academic research type of an environment. My dad was an academic, my grandfather, my uncle, like it's just in my family DNA. So I was kind of raised with you try, you fail, you figure out what went wrong and you try again.
Mhm.
And so that's always kind of been my approach to life. And so that's what I did. And, in between that, it was a lot of collapse and sob for days and days and days. And then I come up and, I mean, sometimes I failed spectacularly
Mm.
and was out of the game for a couple of weeks, but then I would come back and I would try something else. And so it's never pretty, right? It's never a
No,
pretty journey
no,
ever.
no.
But you learn what you learn and, you gotta keep moving forward. You just have to. What's the
Yeah,
alternative?
yeah. Our lessons, rather than regrets, we can look at them as lessons and we
That's
can
right.
grow,
Mhm.
from them and, it may be Pollyanna-ish of me to say, but every misstep I make, and there have been some really epic missteps. I'm sitting here and I get to talk to you tonight with
Yeah.
these wonderful people,
Mhm.
in the audience who are really curious to hear what you have to share. So, yeah, it wasn't pretty, but if my road was pretty, I wouldn't be here.
It's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. It's like your road, it's I mean, it's not fair, but it's almost like your road can't be pretty
Yeah.
because it'd be a very short road if it
Right.
was. I think it's those failures and those missteps and us wanting to get better that makes us go forward. And I
Mm,
think if we didn't have that, we would just kind of sit in place.
for sure. It's kind of like gratitude. If everything was just status
Mhm.
quo all the time,
Mm.
our levels of gratitude, we wouldn't be able to really appreciate the
That's
good,
exactly right.
if we didn't experience the bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's life. I think we need positive and negative. We need the good and the bad, the up and the down. It's you just need it.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to hear from you guys. Her podcast is of the same name, Live Your Life, Not Your Diagnosis. And when you were on 2 months ago, it was already taking off, and now it's even more so. Like it's
Yeah.
really doing well, your podcast,
It
doesn't it?
is. It
Yeah.
is. I'm really excited. I'm really happy. I'm really happy with it because it was kind of okay, let's just do this and see. And I mean, I've just been amazed at the guests that I've had because it's every episode is I'm interviewing somebody. I'm talking to somebody that has a chronic illness
Mhm.
and I'm talking to them about their story. And then you know, most of the people have a chronic illness and they're wanting to give back. And so they're doing something either within the community or adjacent to the community. And so I'm talking to them and just kind of hearing about what they do to help them. And I've just been so just pleasantly surprised at just the quality of people that I get to talk to and kind of show to the world. I mean, it's like I get really giddy
Yeah, I am on the same
about it.
way. I'm totally the same way.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
always so humbled by the people and the guests that I have. I
Yeah.
think you're episode 98 tonight. Not
Mm,
every single one has had a guest, but just about. And I just I'm humbled by the people willing to give back because I'm not the biggest game in town. I don't have millions of followers and all that. I'm not trying
you're
to
pretty
downplay what I
big.
do,
You're pretty
but
big.
well, big, big podcast listening audience apparently. But no, seriously, like I don't promise you're going to get millions of followers by being on my show, but people still willingly come on. So I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful for you being here. So I want to hear from you guys. I'm going to get to some of your comments, but the question I asked, if I can get it back up here, is where have your challenges been? What do you have to ask Andrea? Because she is a she's a master certified mindset coach, among many other things. So she can help answer these questions along with a million that I have, which I probably won't get to. What challenges do you face in living your best life with your chronic condition? So let's get to some comments here. If you guys didn't catch her the first time around, I encourage you. It's on my YouTube channel, which is Gratitude Addict. You can catch it on there. It was just wonderful. So let's see. Courtney's here. Hello. Hi, Linda. Thanks for being here.
Hi,
Linda,
guys.
excited to see you back.
Hi, Linda.
Me too. Um, Somebody said awesome. I should have said, if you're watching from inside Attitude of Gratitude with chronic pain, I know I say this every episode, but in case you've never caught an episode before, because I use a platform called StreamYard, which is a third nice, nice
That's
third party
fantastic.
third party platform, because Attitude of Gratitude with chronic pain is a private group. You need to uh, give them permission to use your name and your profile photo. If you don't, and it's fine if you don't, but if you don't, it just comes up as Facebook user on my end. It's going to look on your end like your name is coming up. And it is. But on my end, because I'm doing it through StreamYard, it's not. So it's fine. You can still comment and stuff. It's just you won't see your pretty name and be famous. Oop, where'd she go? Hi, Sandy. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Sandy.
The mug is from the Gratitude Addict store on Bonfire, which I put a link if you scroll back. It is in bonfire.com /store/gratitude addict, as well as this shirt. I speak fluent gratitude.
I love that
But
shirt.
thank you. Me too. I designed it. Very excited. Um, what's the name of the podcast? Live Your Life, Not Your Diagnosis. Highly recommend. Lifelong learning, says Jill Cook. Practicing medicine. This is what happens when I let the comments go. I don't know what it's referring to. Facebook user says, my sister is 18 when diagnosed right out of high school. She lived 45 years with it and the last 10 years bedridden. She loved life and blessed everyone around her daily. We lost her in 2007. I'm so sorry. I help take care of her on a daily basis. I have lupus, fibromyalgia, Sjogren's, chronic fatigue, 2 different cancers, and 2 organs that were removed a year apart. I'm in extreme pain daily, and the fatigue is pretty bad. When I can't handle it anymore, I look over at a pic of my sister and me and realize, look, some of it was cut off, but I would love to hear what else you have to say. It's a fantastic share. We share some of those same illnesses. But yeah, thank you for watching. Jill says, the best medical advice I have received, these are diseases of management and you are the manager. Gave me a semblance of ownership and control. Jill, funny you should say that because I pulled up a quote of yours, Andrea. Oh, wait, that's not the right one. Well, I'll share this one too. This is from your website. Multiple sclerosis does not define me. I do.
Yeah.
But there's something in your bio that really struck me. Oh, here it is. In your bio, it says you've learned that the key to managing this disease is not being an expert in MS, it's being an expert in you. I
Yeah.
love that. I heart that so much because I found that too. You know, I used to spin my wheels just trying to like cure myself and find everything, the alternative therapies, and all of that is very important. Of course, you know, we can't just go untreated. I can't just say, hey, I'm going to practice gratitude and not manage my illness. It doesn't
Yeah.
work that way.
Yeah.
But I have found that it's through personal growth and working on me that, you know, true growth and joy has happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that just like, um, just like we're not all the same, even though we have some of the same diseases, the treatments aren't all the same
Right.
for us just because it's the same treatment, right? Like you and I can be on the same, you know, we could both be doing Pilates, let's just say, for as like a treatment for our bodies. We're going to have different reactions to
Right.
it. It's going to, and so I think you have to be an expert in you because you're going to get all of these great ideas and good things to try. But, a lot of times every single different thing that you can try has 100 people saying, this is the one.
Yeah.
This is it. This is all you need. And don't do that, do this. And you, like you said, it's going to drive you crazy
Mhm.
unless you're an expert in yourself first. And so you're going to know not only like, you know what, I know ahead of time that's not going to work or this is going to work, but you can tell while you're doing something, oh, this isn't really working, or this is really working, or you know what, if I combine this and that works for me, right? So you really need to be an expert in yourself first and foremost to be able to find the best treatment possible.
Such a good point. And
Mm,
I think that's why that pet peeve of mine where a book will say, you know, heal your pain or
mm.
you know, rid yourself of chronic pain. It's
Yeah.
so I don't know. I
It's marketing speak.
it is marketing speak, and I'm sure
Mm,
it was a
mm,
very, you know, a publisher wanting to sell books, and I'm sure they sell books, and I'm sure the books, I'm sure, are absolutely fine. It's just it bothers me because I feel
mhm.
like over the last 22 years that I've been sick, you know, I hope is a wonderful thing. Don't get me wrong. We all have hope. I hope I'm cured someday. I hope you're all cured someday. Um, but to get that kind of hope, like if I read this book, I'm going to rid
Right.
myself of chronic pain, it
Mhm.
seems really reckless to me, you know, rather
Yeah.
than living your life, not your diagnosis. Now that's a title. Seriously though, I mean, you're
Thank you.
talking about living your life with your
Right.
diagnosis.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like it's that magical pill thinking
Yeah.
where it's like, this is the one thing and this is all I need and this is gonna heal me, and not only does it set us up to take, put the ownership in somebody else's hands, like give somebody else the power, but it also sets us up because what if it's not? And then all of a sudden, it can really give us a letdown because we've never we never really took ownership of it. And so when it's almost like somebody else is letting us down, and then all of a sudden it can be turned inward like, well, I didn't do it right, or
Yeah,
I
that's the thing.
and it can just turn into a really shamey kind of a thing, looking for that magic pill outside of you. Like the magic pill is with you. And there's probably a lot of different things that you can do that's really going to help. But
Right.
but it's not giving it over to somebody else to cure you. That
Right,
doesn't.
and not not making it seem like it's our fault if it doesn't work,
Mhm.
because like you said, we are all different, and you can see a new treatment and be like, "Oh, maybe that'll help," and
Mhm.
we can, like you said, know yourself better and, um, decide to do it, and, then it's in your hands without that guilt associated with it.
Mhm.
Um, as far as the managing thing, you've got a section in your book where you're talking about, it's right towards the back, um, putting the layers together. You talk
Yeah.
about, you know, people that live with chronic pain and illness, we want things when we want it now. We
Hmm.
want to be cured now. We want to do, if we're
Sure.
given 5 things, new things to try, we want to try all 5 things at the
Mhm.
same time.
Mhm.
You recommend what you call layering.
Yeah. Yeah. Opposed to what's kinda like the shotgun method, right? Let's just throw a
Mhm.
bunch of things at it and see what works. It kinda goes back to, like my thinking and how I was raised. It was very much in like a research kind of a, family. And when you're doing research, you know, you want to, like, when you're looking at like a true double blind research study, you want to eliminate as much confounds as possible. So, you want to make sure that everybody is the same and there's no outside influence or somebody else doing something that another person isn't. Because when you have these things, you can't tell if what you're researching or what you're trying is actually working or if it's something else. So when you are doing something new, like say you have 5 things that you want to do, which is great, right? We should all have 5 things that we want to do. Layer it to where you're doing thing number 1 for at least a couple of weeks. Like I would say even at least a month or 2, depending on what it is first, but only do that because then you can see, is that working? You can truly look at it in comparison to a baseline and say, okay, this thing actually helped a little bit. And you can kind of say like, this helped like, like 1 to 10 it, right? Like this helped to like a 3. And then you can add the second thing that you wanna try and do that for a month or 2. And then you can see like, okay, is this now helping me? Or do I still kind of feel the same as my previous baseline, which is doing that first thing, right? So you layer it and yeah, it takes a little bit more time, but that way, if you do something that isn't working, you're gonna stop doing it because
Like an
why?
elimination diet when you're testing for
Yes.
allergies kind
It's
of, right? Yeah,
exactly like that. It's
yeah,
exactly like that. Because, like, why would you keep doing something if it's not working? But if you did 5 things, one of those 5 things are working, but you're gonna have to keep doing all 5 of those things because 'cause you're not entirely sure which one it is that's
right.
working. And so it's a more measured way to try new therapies, but in the end, it's kind of a time saver because it really helps you eliminate the things that might not be working so much or might not be, worth it.
Good advice.
Mm,
Let's get to some more comments. Sandy's challenge is staying motivated when change is slow.
mm,
Sandy, that is one of the talking points I wanted to talk about tonight is,
yeah.
um, where did it go? How do you incorporate change when change is so scary? Nice, Sandy.
Mhm.
Yeah, how do you incorporate change? Because change is scary. Our comfort zones, we don't have comfort very often, so we grab onto them and we don't want to let go,
Yeah.
you know?
I mean, first of all, I think it depends on what the change is, right? But I think ultimately it really does go back to your mindset and realizing that number 1, change happens all the time, whether we want it or not.
Mm,
And so we tend to only give credit to the big things that happen. right? Only give credit to the big changes, especially if you're looking to change something like your fitness level or something like that, right? And that's kind of going so. We look for those big changes and we overlook the small ones. So if you look at the small ones, you've realized number one, change happens all the time,
Mm,
right? Like we're going to be changed after this podcast or after this show, everybody, because we're going to hear something or I'm going to connect with you, which is always great. So it gives me a boost. Everybody here is going to change
mhm.
somehow. It's not a scary change, or at least I would hope it's not a scary change. But
We'll
you know what
see
I
at the
mean?
end of the episode.
But that's the thing. It's like we tend to overlook things. So when you look at life and you realize that change happens all the time, then change isn't so scary because you realize that you're always in a changing environment. So it's not like you're totally staying the same and nothing has changed and all of a sudden you have to take a big step. It's not actually what happened. You're ignoring all those little steps that you made ahead of the big step. So I think that would be one. It's just know that change is always happening.
Right.
And number two, if you're trying to stay motivated and say you're trying to do some kind of a new lifestyle change, like a new habit or something like that, it's kind of the same thing is we tend to not give ourselves credit for the small things because we think it's easy or we think it's not doing anything or maybe we haven't seen it with our eyes. I don't know, Sandy, what you're doing. If you want to, you can pop a note and say what you are trying to stay motivated with. But let's just say if it's something like you were doing a new fitness, let's just keep it on that, right? You're not necessarily going to see change on the scale first. You might see change in how your clothes are fitting or simply in how you're feeling
Mm,
physically, right? Like when I start weightlifting, one of the first changes I noticed is how I felt when I was like walking upstairs
hmm,
or when I was standing for a long period of time or how I sat. I would notice a change in just my posture. That's a very small change. And if my goal was I got to lose 100 pounds, I'm going to overlook the fact that I feel stronger when I'm walking upstairs because it seems like such a small change. But if I'm looking at evidence that I am doing something and my body is changing, that's a really big thing for me to feel different in doing some of these daily activities than I did just like the week before. So it's all about looking at those small things and giving ourselves credit because a lot of times we just overlook it and we just kind of judge it and think that it's not, it doesn't count.
that's a good point, and I know
Mm.
I wanna put up your books again because one of your books, um, focuses on losing weight, and I know this is one of your specialties. When, when you talk about weightlifting, often we can see on the scale, we can see we're actually putting on pounds, right, when we're
Right.
weightlifting, but our clothes might be getting smaller, right? Because
Yeah.
weight-bearing exercise does that.
Right. And, one of the points in that book is yes, we can want to lose weight, but it talks about it doing that weight loss in a more intuitive way. So instead of saying a number on a scale is what I'm going to force my body into and I'm not going to be happy unless I get there, it's much more about using weight loss as a gateway into becoming much more in tuned with your body. So I talk a lot in that book about the mind body connection. I talk a lot in the book about learning how to connect with your body and listening to your body because that is what's going to help you. And ultimately, it's not necessarily about the weight loss number. It's about you getting in tune with your body and bringing it back to its healthy state, which might be at a heavier state than you think it is. You don't know, right? But a
Right,
lot of times we're not even like I didn't even know what an emotion really was. Like, you know what I mean? Like, of course, I knew what crying and happiness was, but I had no idea when I first started this about emotions. I was completely frozen up. I was completely frozen up as far as connecting with my body. And so that's what a more intuitive way of healing your body. And when you do that, yeah, weight loss is if if you are overweight, weight loss is probably going to happen, but it's not about that number on the scale that you've
right.
decided that you want.
And then there's the plateaus too, right,
Mhm.
where things are going weight loss or whatever change we're
Mhm.
talking about, you could see the change and all of a sudden things are gonna even out, which can be a bit frustrating
Right.
and yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah. What other question do you guys have? What are your challenges living with chronic, chronic pain and illness or whatever your struggles are? We tend to deal with more the emotional aspect of chronic pain on this show. Courtney says, "My challenge living my best life is not being able to finish my
Mm,
college degree and also not being able to work for money." Those are very real feelings for sure. And I think we may have talked about this last time, Andrea, but I think a lot of us living with, a diagnosis or some kind of life change like that, we can get very, I don't know what the right word is, kind of down on ourselves if we're no longer able to contribute financially to the
mm,
household or no
mhm.
longer able to work. A lot of us have our identity tied up in what our occupations can be. That can be a tough pill to swallow, pun totally intended on that. But how
Yeah.
do we get around that? You talk a lot about getting to know yourself, treating yourself. I get the way you be extraordinary to yourself. Just turn to that page. Treating yourself, changing our
Mhm.
narrative and the way we talk, you know, to ourselves. I know that's a loaded question there, but what are your thoughts?
No, I mean, I think it's very on point. It's very true because I mean, it's in our society, right? Where we're valued by what we, it can be labeled really nicely as like, how do you give back?
Mm,
How do you serve? How do you, right? It's all about your production.
mm,
And on a high level, it could be like, what is your production return? Like money or status? What is your title at your job? What type of a company do you work for? And I get it. I was very wrapped up in that when I was working in finance. It was all about like what hedge fund did I work at and how big was the fund and how much do I know and was I, did I have my certificate? Could I trade stocks and bonds? It gets very you can get very wrapped up in that,
right.
and it is supported by the society that we live in. And so it really is and I actually I d yeah, a lot of us here are looking at it because of our chronic illness is forcing us to change, but I actually think this is something that society is starting to slowly wake up to.
I do
Um
too. I've noticed that.
yeah, and it's this idea of reworking your identity, right? Don't have it so, that's an ego-based identity, right? To say like I make this much money, I bring home this much and this is how I and if I can't do that, it can be like, "Oh crap, well what am I doing? I have to clean the whole house. I have to make sure I am contributing
Right,
somehow because my partner is contributing with money and maybe I need to cook all the time, but I don't have the energy to cook all the time." It can be such a spiral. And so it's reworking your identity to have it where are you are what's the word I'm looking for? You value yourself based on who you are, and it's got nothing to do with how you produce and or anything like that, how much money you make, how much you contribute, how much giving back you're doing, right? It can be how much you donate, right? Understanding that all of those things are fine, but they don't make up your identity. And
right,
once you have a solid identity of who you are, that really helps because you realize that you are and it's a huge it's a big question, it's a big answer. A lot of it is in valuing yourself, and it's deep down confidence comes from valuing yourself and believing in yourself. And when you disassociate that from your earnings and all the other kind of stuff that society says, and you really just base it on how you feel, it almost gives you that confidence to really it's like almost like an immunity to really worrying about that because you're inherently valuable. Just yeah, I mean, not to sound super cheesy, and I know we say that a lot of this, like, I don't wanna be cheesy, but you're inherently valuable for who you are as a person, who you are as a human, not as what you could give. And so it's about reworking your identity and really understanding, and sometimes that can take a lot of work. I know it did for me. It took a
me
lot
too.
of yeah, it took a lot of introspection. It took a lot of really, looking inward to find that value in and of myself And I think it's almost like the easy answer is to say like, well, I make $1 million a year. Of course I'm valuable.
Mm.
Right? Because then you don't have to do the inside work.
Good point.
So,
Good
yeah,
point. The inside work is difficult.
it's
It's not
difficult.
easy looking at ourselves and
Mm-mm.
what makes
No.
us tick. I was
Mhm.
not forced to, I wasn't forced to, but, when I hit my rock bottom and went to rehab and then found myself in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous for a couple of years, that was kind of the springboard for me, and then, of course, with the group in Attitude of Gratitude with Chronic Pain, that is what we do. We peel back the layers of the onion and find out what makes us us.
Mhm.
We're not, this is cheesy, I'm gonna say, but there's that quote that says, "We're not human doings, we are human
Human
beings."
beings, yeah.
And I think the whole mindfulness thing that's been getting, just exploded. I think you're right. I think we're starting to recognize, because we're a stressed out society. We're very, very sick. We're lonely. I think the last time you were on, that study on loneliness had just come out.
Mhm.
We're lonely. We are full of anxiety. We are very sick. And I think
Mhm.
that's because, doing has been a lot of our downfall.
Yeah, it was interesting in my very first coach training, I went and studied with a woman named Martha Beck. I don't know if she's got
Sounds
quite a few
familiar.
books. She's got quite a few books. She's a genius. I mean, she's just amazing, but she's the one who really introduced me to mindset as in like as a thing. And I remember we were all sitting there and it was probably the first day and she asked us the question of who are you?
Mm,
And it was the hardest I mean, it took me years to answer that question because her whole point, because you went around the group and people are like, "Oh, well, I'm a mom, I'm a coach." And she's like,
right.
"Nope, nope, it's not the answer. You're not a mom, you're not a coach, you're not a teacher, you're not a wife, you're not none of that answered the question of who are you?"
Yeah.
And that just scrambled my brain for so long because I was like, "Oh, no, no, this is," and then I'd be like, "Oh, no, I get it. I know who I am. I'm a teacher." And then I'm like, "Oh, wait, no, that's not it," because that's still about, like, what I'm giving opposed
Right.
so it's a really interesting question that's not easy
It's
to
not.
answer.
It's not. But, I know we talked about the 4 agreements the last time you
Mm,
were on, which is,
mhm.
like,
So
probably my
good.
favorite book of all time. It's
Ugh,
just these
so
4
good.
little agreements. They're just the answer to everything. But
Mhm.
if we're always doing our best, and walking with we can walk with our head held high. We're not gonna be perfect. We're going to make mistakes, but if we always do our best, which is, for those of you that don't know, always do your best is one of
Mm.
those agreements. Um, you know, we eventually get to who we are. I'm a forever work in progress. I
Yeah.
like to say I'm a hot mess who tries really hard.
So my just as, like, as an aside, my favorite agreement I mean, I love them all, but my favorite
Mhm.
is don't take anything personally.
Personally, that's
That
a good
changed
one.
my
Yeah,
life.
yeah.
Changed my life.
It's one I talk about with my moderators in the group almost
Mm,
daily, because yeah, it's probably the best one and the most challenging for me at the same time.
yeah.
I'm getting better, but, yeah, it's challenging. Here's our continued from the previous post. My sister lasted 45 years because she was in denial the first 15 years, then just
Oh,
dealt with each issue as it came. The last year she was in the hospital more than home, but never gave up. She loved Christmas and her whole house was Christmas. The doctors told her at 18 that she was too fat, and it took 2 years to diagnose her in the 60s. Oh, that she was sick because she was fat? That's terrible.
mm,
The hardest things for me is getting my family and friends that haven't disappeared to understand that one week I can do stuff and the next week I can almost fill that last part in for you.
no.
Nor I won't, but I know where you're going with this. I think a lot of us
Yeah.
can relate. Um,
Mm,
let's see what other Jill Cook. Somehow they're disappearing here. Self-care, which I learned here, changes the game for me. Yep.
mm.
Courtney, it preys on our dispersion to be cured. Desperation. Okay, that makes sense. Um, Jill says layering works. Thank you for sharing this. And sometimes one thing stops working. For
Yes, yes,
sure.
yes.
She also has back here somewhere the master plan. in the back
Mm.
of your book, which is basically a worksheet. And I think you have these on your website also,
I
don't you?
do, yes, you can opt in, and where's my book? I'll have to look and see.
I'm gonna put this link in the comments, you
2
guys.
seconds. I'll find out because there's yes, you can opt in and get all of the worksheets in the book. I just can't remember what that opt-in is off the top of my
I
head.
just put a link in the,
Yeah.
comments.
Let's see.
So you've got some downloads and stuff there, but your master plan, you've got why is this important to you? Current techniques used. How can I make this
Mhm.
better? New techniques I want to try and notes.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, it's at andreahansoncoaching.com, /book sheets.
Yeah, I just put the
That's what it
link in
is.
the comments.
It's where you can get
Hopefully
the all the
everybody got it.
worksheets that are
Yeah.
in the book.
Um, yeah, if you guys I think the comments went everywhere, but if not, we'll put it in the show notes for sure. But yeah, she has a template for it in the back here, and
Mhm,
you can work on the layering and
mhm.
you, as you say, put the layers together and not shotgun try things, but try them in
Right,
spurts, which is kind of getting to Sandy's thing when change is slow. We want to try it all now because we're
right.
desperate. We want things to work.
Right, and the thing is, it's like chances are, yeah, if you try all 5 things at once, you're gonna feel better. You're just not gonna know how and
Right.
why, and that's not great.
No, it's
That doesn't help.
Julie says, my challenge in life advocating for my health, making sure people still care to protect me during this virus. I'm immunocompromised and it's a struggle. People
Mm,
don't understand what high risk people mean or ignore the meaning. You
mhm.
tell them you have mobility issues, they understand that more, and then deliver stuff to my door and not leave it in the lobby of my building. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, understand getting others to understand is challenging. I know you talk in the book about a lot about being honest.
Mm.
That's not always easy.
No, and quite, I mean, I think in a perfect world, you don't have to be honest about what's going on, right? In a perfect
Right.
world, you can say, because I mean, that happens a lot with invisible illness, right? Like I have an invisible illness, and I always say, like, you don't know how many eyes I can see you through right
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, you don't, a lot of times with pain, like, you can't see pain. And in a perfect world, you wouldn't have to explain that, or you can tell him people once and they would get it. But this whole virus has been really interesting, and I think a lot of people in here and in the group have known for a long time that other people don't really think about it. Like I'd always say, like, I get to there's some people, it's like I get to their house and they're like, "Hi, big hug," and I say, "How are you?" And they're like, I can't get rid of this cold and this cough." And I'm like,
I can't stand that.
"Why did you hug me?"
Seriously?
And you feel like you gotta tell them like 50 times, and
Yeah,
it's only exaggerated, because of this virus, because it's just so much bigger than
and
what
then
we've
you
had.
feel like a jerk, which you
But
shouldn't have to.
that's the thing, yeah,
Yeah,
but you know what? Don't take anything personally. Don't take it personally that people
right,
don't get it, right? Like,
right,
it's not we will run ourselves ragged if we try to make other people understand. Like, it's not our job to make other people
right,
understand. It's our job to put up the boundaries to protect ourselves if people don't want to understand.
right. Yeah, I give that, um advice to people all the
Mm,
time. It's particularly I'm fortunate I have a wonderful spouse who
mm,
understands and
me
just
too.
trusts, but I know that that's not always the case, and some people, their spouses, they can't get their spouses to understand, and they make themselves
Mhm,
just so frustrated and stressed out by trying to, and I get it. I mean, you you want your spouse to understand because if they don't understand, then I might view that as you're not believing what I say to be true. I don't know if you've
mhm.
dealt with that with any of your clients and patients.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I'm very blessed to have a husband that is just I mean, he's never known me before my diagnosis.
Mm,
Like, I met like, I'd already so he's like, this is what he's got. He's always had this. But it can be hard, especially when people know their spouse before they're diagnosed and there's a change. Um, and yeah, it yeah, but I mean, that's kind of where And again, this is not easy. This is not a quick fix. This is not a, at the end of the sentence, you're going to be totally different. But it's not about making other people understand. Because, I mean, even family members, even spouses, it's not your job, right? Like it's their job. Like you can't be in their head. You just can't do that. I mean, and I'm not saying it from like it's not a good thing. Like I'm saying like it is impossible to do.
It is.
All you can do is do your best,
Right.
right? And speak your truth and then decide. I hate to say it, it happens with friends, it happens with a lot of people when we're dealing with these issues. You got to make the decision of, is this the best person for me? I'm not advocating, going out and getting divorced,
No, of course.
but
Yeah.
it's giving up the fight on your end because
Yeah.
all that's doing is exhausting you. Because if someone's not going to see it, they're not gonna see it,
They're not.
and, do they need to see it? Do they right? It's there's a whole host of questions of, like, do they even really need to understand? Can they understand? Can one person
I don't think
truly
unless
understand
they
another
can
person?
feel what we're feeling for 5 minutes,
Yeah.
I don't think there's ever gonna be that one thing you can say where they're gonna
Mm-mm.
be like, "Oh,
I
okay."
get it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, but
Exactly.
yeah, we
Mhm.
shouldn't have to, you're right, we shouldn't have.
Right, but I think the best thing to do at that point is giving up, and I understand it's like a fight, but give up that fight of trying to get through to people. Especially if it happens again and again, because it's just not your job. It
And
is
our
just
energy
not
is
your
so
job.
precious, we
It
have
is
very
so
limited
precious.
resources, free
And
spoons out there, and
yeah,
it's kind of, I don't wanna say a waste of our time, but in a way, it's a waste of our energy because unless you really think that you're gonna be able to say something that will make them understand, it just seems kind of unlikely.
right, and I mean, there's whole questions of, like, do they need to understand, and what's happening because they don't understand, and how can you better protect yourself with what's happening because they don't understand in a different way, right?
Right.
Because if you leave yourself unprotected for whatever it is until they understand, that's not gonna help you either. So
Right,
it could be that you can take care of yourself and let them not understand and be, they can love you even though they don't quite understand. And maybe that's just where their relationship is. And I think that's 100% fine.
right. Andrea, it's like 9 o'clock already.
I can't believe it.
I have like 20 questions I need.
I know. I'm here for it. I
Let me
love answering questions.
make sure, I just wanna make sure I get all the not
Yeah.
all the comments, I can't get to all the comments, because we have to end, but, this Facebook user says, "I've been trying to make my family understand for 20 years after working 60 hours a week for 40 years, and now sometimes I can't get off the couch, so I really need to not take it personally."
Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't know of the 4 agreements,
Mm.
um
Read it
I
now.
really should get a kickback from this book.
Read
It's
it now.
fantastic.
It's
It's a
amazing.
small little book. I refer to it at least once a week.
Life changing. It's one
Be
of those books that you'll
impeccable
like
with your word.
highlight.
You talked about using your, best language. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Always do your best. And I always forget one of the 4. Always do your best.
See,
Impeccable
now I
with
can't
word.
remember.
Don't take anything personally. I hate cheating. Don't
Do
take
it though. I was gonna look it up because this
Yeah.
is killing
I
me.
always and it's always a different one, I forget it, but one of the 3 or one of the 4 rather. Be
What is it?
impeccable with you don't make assumptions. I knew it was an A.
Yes.
Don't make assumptions. That's a good one
Yes.
too.
They're all so
Yeah,
good.
they are, they are.
I mean, required reading.
Very. It was given to me as a birthday gift when I was in rehab,
Mm.
believe it or not. I celebrated my 43rd birthday in rehab. They had a gift shop. My pain people got it for me. I had never heard of it, and it's been a fantastic,
Mm.
definitely a fantastic thing. So, yeah, we are at the hour, unfortunately, but I just want to end on this, Courtney. I really needed to hear this. I've been trying to get all those around me to understand. Not so good. I know. I know.
Mhm.
So if you guys want to reach Andrea, first of all, go to her website. It's andreahansoncoaching.com.
Mhm.
Her website or her podcast rather is the same as the book, Live Your Life, Not Your Diagnosis. Um, she has some incredible guests on the show. But you've been sharing with me some of the guests you've had recently, and it's A
Pretty amazing.
fantastic podcast to listen to. You'll get these words of wisdom all the time. So you can definitely. Oh, you have a waiting list for something we wanted to
I
talk
do.
about.
Yeah, I was going to say
Of course, yeah.
going to my website, andreahansoncoaching.com. You have access to the books, both books. You can get to the podcast through there, and then you can link to wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. And then I also have a wait list for my upcoming online course, which is based on the books. So it's coming soon. It's not out quite yet. And so what the wait list does is gets you into the founders round, which is the very first round of me doing this class, which is going to be the most access that you get to me. It's going to be the best price that you're ever going to have. It's going to be chock full of a lot of stuff, a lot of VIP kind of access stuff to me, because you're doing me a favor too, because I'm putting out this class for the first time. And so I'm going to be there every step of the way. I'm going to be there for coaching, answering questions. There's just going to be a lot of time with me, as well as it being an online course that is self-paced. So it's not like you have to keep up with the
Perfect.
rest of the class, and you'll have lifetime access to it for the lifetime of the course. So you don't have to get it done in a certain amount of time. You're not going to lose access to it. And for, a certain amount of time, you'll have access to me as well. So
Wow.
that's why it's really cool to get in on the founders round. And you could do that, or have the option to get in on the founders round, by getting on that wait list. So
So they
just
go to
Mhm.
andreahansoncoaching.com and they can find out
It's
how to do it from
right
there.
there on the homepage, how to get into the wait list.
That's
Or
great.
you can do /waitlist. That's the other way.
You are not only a wonderful person, but you are an invaluable resource, and I feel
Thank
very,
you.
honored that you've been back with us for the hour tonight, and I still have these questions. You're gonna have to come back again at some point.
I would love to, and if it's
Yeah.
okay to say, like, I am in the community, and so
She is a member of,
tag me if
Attitude of
you
Gratitude with Chronic. Yeah, that's a good idea if you guys have questions that,
Mhm.
fit in with the group rules, of course.
Right,
Um,
yes, 100%.
attitude of attitude of gratitude, and if they don't fit in with the group rules, I can, you can reach out to her via her website,
Mhm.
andreahansoncoaching.com. Join my community, Attitude of Gratitude with Chronic Pain. She is a member,
And
and
it's fantastic group,
thank
fantastic
you,
group.
thank you very,
Yeah,
very
you just
much.
do a masterful job of running that
Thank
group,
you,
'cause
thank you.
y'all, running Facebook groups is hard.
Yeah.
It's just hard.
Yeah. It's not for the faint of heart. You need to be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally.
That's right,
Don't
don't
make
make
assumptions
assumptions.
and always do your best.
That's exactly right.
So, Andrea Hanson, thank you so, so much for
Thank
being back.
you.
Listen to her podcast, Live Your Life, Not Your Diagnosis. And thank you, gang, for watching live, for contributing. I like doing these broadcasts live because they feel very real and authentic to me. And if you're watching the recording, thank you for watching as well. And we will talk soon. Andrea and I are talking about collaborating on something in the future.
Oh,
So,
it's gonna be so good.
yeah, I think so. I think so. Thank you. And I will see you guys in a couple of weeks. I'll keep you posted. And yeah, thanks for watching. This way. Peace. So, peace and love. Get your gratitude on and speak fluent gratitude. And I will see you next time.